Ever wonder why your grandpa's beat-up old truck still runs like a dream, while your neighbor's shiny new car is already in the shop? Here's the thing. Some cars from way back were built so tough they're practically bulletproof. I'm talking about vehicles that straight up mock the whole idea of things being made to break. These were machines from an era when companies actually gave a damn about quality over pumping out cheap junk. Today, we're counting down 10 old-school cars that were legitimately built to last forever. And get this, some of these things are still crushing it on highways with over 500,000 miles on the clock. So buckle up and hit that like button if you've ever had a car that just wouldn't die, because we're about to dive into some seriously tough machines. Number 10. Mercedes-Benz W123 1976 to 1985. Back in the late 70s, Mercedes-Benz went absolutely nuts. They over-engineered a car, and I don't mean a little bit. Picture building a nuclear bunker when all you really needed was a garden shed. The W123 wasn't just meant to stick around, it was meant to outlive entire civilizations. And guess what? It pretty much has. These things were built so tough that Mercedes engineers supposedly threw in twice as much metal as they needed. The doors? Heavier than the hoods on modern cars. The body panels? Thick enough you could probably stop a bullet. Okay, maybe I'm pushing it, but not by much. Right now in Morocco, you'll find these running as taxis with 600,000 miles on the original motor. 600,000. Let that sink in. Mercedes basically threw unlimited cash at making these perfect. Every single part was tested until it broke. Then they'd redesign it to be even stronger. Those diesel engines, especially the famous OM-16, were dead simple. Like tractor-level simple. No turbo, no complicated electronics. Just raw mechanical toughness. Highway driving for these engines was like asking Usain Bolt to go for a light jog. The crazy part? Mercedes actually lost money on every single W123 they sold. The bean counters must have been losing their minds. The amount of engineering that went into these was just bonkers from a business standpoint. But Mercedes didn't care. They were on a mission to build the most reliable car ever made. The vacuum-operated central locking system alone had more redundancy than a space shuttle. If one system failed, 3 backups kicked in. That's the level of over-engineering we're talking about here. These days, finding a clean W123 is like hitting the jackpot. They've basically become the cockroaches of cars. And I mean that in the best possible way. When the nukes drop, the only things left will be cockroaches, Keith Richards, and these Mercedes still purring along. What really gets me is how many owners swear these cars actually get better with age. Like they're just breaking in after the first 200,000 miles. The more you drive them, the smoother they run. It's almost supernatural. Number 9. Honda Accord 3rd generation, 1986 to 1989. Honda in the 80s was that annoying straight A student who made everyone else look bad. While Detroit was cutting every corner they could find, Honda engineers were literally having meetings about thread pitches on seat screws. The 3rd gen Accord was built with this crazy devotion to cars never breaking down. Like ever. Honda's whole deal back then was simple. Get it right the first time because warranty work is embarrassing. And I'm serious. Honda engineers would literally lie awake at night, worried about dashboard squeaks. What did that give you? A boring-looking sedan that could basically survive a meteor strike. Well, almost. The engine would probably still turn over even then. These Accord engines were brilliantly simple. The fuel injection was so straightforward your buddy could figure it out after a few beers in the garage. None of this complicated computer nonsense. No dozen sensors waiting to crap out. Just solid mechanical engineering. People routinely drove these to 300,000 miles doing nothing but oil changes and the occasional timing belt swap. That's it. No major repairs, no expensive fixes. Just basic maintenance and they'd keep running forever. The build quality was insane for a family sedan. Everything was assembled with precision that'd make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. Panel gaps were perfect. Nothing rattled, nothing squeaked. It was almost eerie how well these things were put together. Want proof these things are tough? Head to any poor country where people drive cars until the wheels literally fall off. You'll see 3rd gen Accords everywhere. In Cuba, where keeping any car alive is basically a full-time job, people treat these Hondas like gold. Mechanics in Ghana literally call them forever cars because they've seen them survive stuff that would destroy a Land Cruiser. Best part? When something finally does break, after 400,000 miles, the parts are simple enough you can fix it in your driveway with basic tools. The third-gen Accord proved you didn't need luxury or fancy features to build a great car. You just needed solid engineering and a refusal to compromise on quality. Number 8. Jeep Cherokee XJ, 1984 to 2001. When AMC engineers sat down to sketch out the Cherokee XJ, they obviously decided playing it safe was for suckers. Instead of just making another boring SUV, they built what I can only call a big middle finger to the whole idea of things wearing out. The XJ wasn't just tough, it was end-of-the-world tough. Here's the secret. They went with unibody construction, which sounds boring as hell until you realize it made this thing lighter, stronger, and stiffer than regular truck-based SUVs. It's like origami, but for tanks. The unibody meant the whole structure worked together, distributing stress better than a traditional frame could. That 4.0-liter straight six, things basically unkillable. Jeep's engineers must have been trying to build something that could survive nuclear war. These motors regularly see 300,000 miles on basically no maintenance. Just change the oil occasionally and they'll run forever. What made the XJ really special was how simple it was. No fancy computer stuff to break, no complicated four-wheel drive with a million different modes you'll never use. Just a transfer case, solid axles, and enough clearance to drive over, well, pretty much anything. The cooling system was so overbuilt, you could probably cool a power plant with it. The transmission? Actually bulletproof. People have literally shot these and they kept working. There are videos online of people using XJs as target practice. And the trucks just keep running. Here's where it gets wild. The XJ got so legendary it spawned an actual cult. I'm not exaggerating. There's a real group called the XJ Mafia. These folks are dead serious about their Jeeps and will fight you over them. They trade stories about XJs with 500,000 miles like fishermen talking about the big one, except their stories are actually true. You'll hear tales of XJs being rolled multiple times, pulled from rivers, or running for months without oil changes, and they just keep going. The post office bought thousands of these for mail routes. Think about that. An organization that destroys vehicles for a living picked the XJ because they needed something that just wouldn't quit. 20 years later, tons of those mail Jeeps are still on the road. They've been rolled, flooded, shot at, driven through ridiculous terrain, and they just keep going. Jeep basically accidentally made the Wolverine of SUVs. It heals itself and refuses to die. Finding a nice XJ now is like spotting a unicorn. Except unicorns would probably be easier to kill. Number 7. Ford Crown Victoria, 1992 to 2011. The Crown Vic was basically a cockroach in a cop costume. When Ford's engineers designed this thing, they asked themselves, what if we made a car that could handle the absolute worst drivers in America beating on it 24/7? That's how you got the Crown Vic, and holy crap, did they nail it? Cops didn't pick this because it was fast or handled well. They picked it because you could literally crash it into a wall, throw it in reverse, and keep chasing criminals like nothing happened. The construction was basically a truck dressed up as a sedan. That body-on-frame setup meant this thing could take hits that would total a unibody car. It was overbuilt in the best possible way. That 4.6-liter V8 was so relaxed it probably got bored at highway speeds. Ford designed it to run forever at whatever speed you needed, whether that's idling for hours or chasing speeders down the interstate. The genius was, in the little stuff nobody thinks about, the cooling system was built for sitting around idling because that's what cops do. The electrical could power enough gear to run a radio station. Lights, computers, radios, cameras. The Crown Vic could handle it, all without breaking a sweat. The suspension could handle a 400-pound officer loaded down with 50 pounds of equipment, jumping curbs at 60. The seats were built for 12-hour shifts. Everything was designed for punishment. Ford built that transmission so tough, their engineers probably threw parties every time one hit 100,000 miles with zero maintenance. But here's the beautiful part. When police departments dumped these at 150,000 miles of hard use, they were barely getting started. Cab companies would snap them up and run another 300,000 miles. Then regular folks would buy them and drive another 200,000. It's like that circle of life thing, except nothing actually dies. There are Crown Vics rolling around with 600,000 miles doing Uber. That's not just long-lasting, that's basically immortal. When Ford finally killed the Crown Vic in 2011, cops literally stockpiled them. They bought extras just to strip for parts so their fleets could keep running forever. Some departments are still driving Crown Vics today, 13 years after Ford stopped making them. They've tried newer stuff, but they keep coming back to these like your favorite old pair of boots that happen to weigh 2 tons. When civilization collapses, someone's going to be driving away in a Crown Victoria, probably an ex-cop car, definitely still running. Number 6. Volvo 240, 1974 to 1993. Back in 1974, some Volvo engineer must have said, "Let's build something safer than a bunker and more reliable than gravity." And then they actually pulled it off. The 240 wasn't just built to last, it was built to outlive your kids, your grandkids, and probably a few civilizations. Volvo's approach was straightforward. Make everything 3 times tougher than it needs to be, then throw in some extra metal just because. What you got was something that looked like a refrigerator on wheels but was tougher than a bank vault. Those engines were so overbuilt that Volvo supposedly tested them by running them bone dry until they seized, then redesigned them to last even longer. These motors regularly hit 400,000 miles with just basic oil changes. Some passed 500,000. There are legit cases of 240s with over 1 million miles. While everyone else was adding computers and complexity, Volvo kept it simple. Fuel injection a farmer could understand. Transmissions that would literally last forever. The heating system could warm an entire house. The seats were designed by actual orthopedic specialists who believed comfort was a basic human right. The safety stuff was way ahead of its time. Crumple zones, proper seat belts, reinforced cabins. Volvo was doing all this while other companies were still arguing about whether seatbelts were even necessary. They crash-tested these so much that the 240 became the gold standard for safety. Insurance companies loved them. Parents loved them. Mechanics loved them because they were easy to fix. The only people who didn't love them were probably gas station owners, since 240 drivers barely ever showed up except for fuel. These days, the 240 has become the car for people who couldn't care less about being fast or looking cool. They just want something that'll start every single morning until the sun burns out. In cities like Portland and Berkeley, beat-up 240s are basically a statement. Sure, I could buy something new, people say, but why would I when this thing will outlive me? And you know what? They're probably right. Scientists studying longevity should really look at these Volvos. Whatever Volvo did to make them immortal, we need to figure out how to bottle it. Number 5. Toyota pickup/Hilux, 1979 to 1995. Back in the 80s, Toyota watched American trucks falling apart and basically said, "Hold my beer." The Toyota pickup completely changed what people thought built to last meant. These things were so tough that the guys at Top Gear literally tried to murder one on TV. They drowned it in the ocean, lit it on fire, dropped it from a crane, smashed it with a wrecking ball, stuck it on top of a building, and demolished the whole thing. And the truck still started. This wasn't TV magic. This was just another day for a Toyota pickup. The hosts looked genuinely freaked out by how hard it was to kill. They kept throwing worse and worse stuff at it, and the truck just kept running. Toyota's whole philosophy was Kaizen, basically obsessive improvement. Every weak spot they found got fixed. Every warranty claim was treated like someone insulted their mother. Those 22R and 22RE engines were simple masterpieces, made good power, barely sipped gas, and flat out refused to die. Timing chains instead of belts meant one less thing to replace. Simple fuel injection meant fewer parts to break. The cooling system could handle Death Valley in August while towing a house. These trucks became the go-to ride in war zones around the world because they just wouldn't stop. In places where car parts are basically non-existent, these pickups keep running on hope and the occasional smack with a hammer. The frame was so tough you could probably use it to build a bridge. The leaf springs were designed like Toyota thought people would drive these on the moon. The manual transmission was agricultural in its simplicity and its strength. Even the rust, and yes, they did rust, seemed to happen in slow motion compared to other trucks. It's like the rust was intimidated by the rest of the truck's refusal to die. Finding a clean Toyota pickup from this era is harder than finding gold, and gold's a lot easier to destroy. These trucks have become so legendary that Toyota brought back the Hilux name in other markets, just to cash in on the reputation. But the new ones, despite being excellent, will never match the originals. Number 4. Chevrolet Suburban, 1973 to 1991. Before SUVs turned into glorified minivans, there was the Suburban. The 73 to 91 models were built like Chevy figured they'd be used after the apocalypse. This was basically a survival bunker on wheels that happened to have windows. The frame could probably hold up a house. The body panels were so thick that fender benders just gave it character. Whether you got the 350 or the big 454, these motors were lazy giants that could yank trees out of the ground without breaking a sweat. They weren't high-strung performance engines. They were under-stressed workhorses designed to run forever. What made these things immortal was how simple they were. Four-wheel drive was mechanical. You pulled a lever and stuff engaged. That's it. You could drive through anything. The transmission was either a bulletproof 3-speed auto or a manual that required gorilla strength, but would outlast the heat death of the universe. The electrical system was so simple you could troubleshoot it with a test light and common sense. No computers, no sensors, no problems. These were built for actual work. Construction crews, oil companies, ranches. They bought thousands because they needed something that could haul 9 people through terrain that would scare a mountain goat. And these Suburbans delivered every single time. There are Suburbans from this era still working ranches with 500,000 miles, still hauling, still towing, still refusing to admit they should be dead. The interior was basic, but that was the whole point. Vinyl seats you could hose down, metal dashes that laughed at sun damage, controls you could operate with work gloves. Everything was designed to be abused by people who saw vehicles as tools, not status symbols. The size was massive even by today's standards. You didn't park a Suburban, you docked it. But that size meant you could fit anything inside. Sheets of plywood, a motorcycle, camping gear for a small army. These old Suburbans are like a sledgehammer. Ugly as sin, not fancy at all, but perfect for the job. Number 3. Cummins powered. Dodge Ram, 1989 to 1993. In 1989, Dodge did something absolutely wild. They grabbed a commercial truck motor meant for vehicles that literally never stop and crammed it into a regular pickup. It was like handing your suburban neighbor dad a chainsaw meant for professional loggers. Total overkill in the best way possible. The first-gen Cummins Ram wasn't pretty. The interior was basically plastic and hope. The ride quality was somewhere between agricultural and medieval torture device. But none of that mattered because the drivetrain was essentially immortal. That Cummins was rated for 1 million miles in semi-trucks. In a pickup hauling way, less weight, it was just warming up at 300,000. These engines were so relaxed that many owners reported better fuel economy after 200,000 miles as everything loosened up and broke in. The fuel system was pure mechanical. A Bosch pump that could run on diesel, vegetable oil, pretty much anything burnable. No computers, no emissions junk. Just precision mechanical injection timed with Swiss watch accuracy and built with medieval mace durability. The turbocharger was sized conservatively, providing reliable boost without stress. Everything was designed for longevity over performance. Here's the wild part. These trucks created their own black market. People would buy completely trashed Rams just to pull that motor out and swap it into newer trucks when those engines failed. The Cummins was so valuable that trucks with blown transmissions and frames, rusted to hell, still sold for serious money. The motor was worth more than everything else combined. It was like finding a diamond in a pile of rust. The manual transmission option, the Getrag 360, was equally overbuilt. It was designed for medium-duty commercial trucks and was basically loafing in a pickup application. The automatics were the weak link, but even those could be built to handle the Cummins torque. Everything else on the truck might fall apart and often did, but that engine would keep running. There are legit cases of these hitting 700,000 miles on the original guts. Some passed 1 million. 12-valve Cummins became code for unkillable among truck people. Dodge accidentally started a cult. They thought they were just selling trucks. Turns out they created something immortal. Number 2. Mercedes-Benz W126 S-Class 1979 to 1991. When Mercedes set out to build the W126, they basically decided penny pinching was blasphemy. This wasn't just a luxury car, it was an engineering middle finger to the whole concept of things breaking. This is what happened when German engineers got unlimited money and a mission to build the best car on the planet. Full stop, no compromises. The over-engineering was almost crazy. The doors closed like a bank vault with that perfect thunk. The paint job had more layers than a Renaissance painting. Primer, base coat, color coat, clear coat, each applied perfectly. The body was rust-proofed so thoroughly that finding a rusty W126 is like finding a humble billionaire. Theoretically possible, but highly unlikely. The motors were built so precisely that Mercedes supposedly needed special clean rooms just to put them together. These were relaxed beasts that could cruise at 80 all day without even trying. They barely noticed highway speeds. That famous OM617 diesel could run on basically anything that burns and would outlive your great-grandkids. The gasoline engines were equally bulletproof, with many examples passing 500,000 miles with just regular maintenance. The climate control had backups for the backups, plus enough vacuum lines to confuse an Italian chef. When something did fail, and it was always when not if with the vacuum systems, the car had so many fail-safes you might not even notice. The suspension was so advanced it made contemporary Rolls-Royces feel like farm equipment. Self-leveling, load-compensating, and somehow still reliable after decades. Mercedes lost money on every single W126. The engineering and perfectionism was economically insane. They forgot they were a business and decided to just build perfect luxury cars instead. Today, a clean W126 is a rolling middle finger to accountants. These show up in poor countries as taxis with 600,000 miles, still running smooth like nothing happened. Still purring along like mechanical aristocrats who refuse to acknowledge they should have died 400,000 miles ago. Number 1. Toyota Land Cruiser FJ60/FJ62 1980 to 1990. Top of the list is the Land Cruiser 60 series, and honestly, nothing else comes close. This wasn't just built to last. It was built to last while crossing deserts, fording rivers, and climbing mountains that would give a mountain goat second thoughts. The FJ60 and 62 were decades of Toyota figuring out what breaks in hell on earth, then engineering those problems into oblivion. Those straight 6 motors weren't powerful, but they were basically farm equipment pretending to be car engines. Highway driving for these was like asking a sumo wrestler to pick up a coffee cup. They regularly hit 400,000 miles. Some passed 600,000. There are documented cases pushing past 1 million on the original motor. Every part was designed assuming it'd have to work somewhere the nearest mechanic was 500 miles away, and the only tools were rocks and determination. The manual transmission was so tough it could probably be used as a boat anchor. The transfer case was simpler than a hammer and twice as reliable. The axles were strong enough to be used in construction equipment. Even the door hinges were overbuilt to ridiculous levels. What really set these apart was the UN buying them for the worst places on Earth. When aid groups needed something that absolutely had to work in conditions that would make Mad Max nervous, they bought Land Cruisers. These trucks have been through wars, disasters, and crises on every continent. They've been shot, blown up, rolled down mountains, and dunked in rivers. They keep running. In Africa, where conditions would kill most vehicles in hours, 60 series cruisers are still daily drivers decades later. The simplicity was beautiful. Manual everything, no computers, no complex electronics. Just mechanical systems that could be fixed with basic tools and determination. The cooling system was designed for Death Valley. The electrical system was simple enough a talented 12-year-old could rewire it. Everything was accessible, serviceable, and built to standards modern manufacturers would consider economically suicidal. Toyota lost money on every Land Cruiser because they refused to compromise. It's like they were building these for their own families to use when the world ends. Finding a clean FJ60 or 62 now is harder than striking gold. And gold's a lot softer and less useful. These trucks stopped being just transportation. They became symbols of what's possible when you build something right. They're the measuring stick for every reliable vehicle, and nothing else measures up. So that's it. 10 old school cars that were legitimately built to last forever. And most of them are still out there proving it daily. Which one have you owned or dreamed about? Got a story about a car that just wouldn't die? Drop it in the comments. If you dug this trip through automotive history's toughest machines, smash that like button and subscribe for more content about the cars that refuse to quit. Thanks for watching, and remember, they seriously don't make them like this anymore.